So a lot of people like this savor, the ultimate connection with God. It's a tremendous savor. We spent a long time talking about our minds and how they work. That's what Rabbi Mimran has been doing. He's setting us in a certain frame of understanding that our thinking can be controlled if we understand the nature of it. Now, coming over here, we're actually getting much more practical in terms of what meditation involves. So this is not something new. That's what I tried to say before. Although the Jewish people have been through a lot. We just went through an enormous massacre, and then, I would guess you would say, a migration away from Europe and away from North Africa and the Middle East. We moved around. A lot has been lost. Let's go over here and find what this is. This is from Shari Kedusha, and we're going to talk about the experience. So I'll get this down here. This is the experience. This is part 4. He says, this is from Shari Kedusha, as I said, the whole soul, he says, Rabbi Mimran says, is comparable to a very long branch that sprouts forth from its roots, which is attached to the tree and extends into the body of man. While a person desires to connect to his source, the light of his mind, which is refers to as the thing being perceived by the perceiver. Now, we may need to read this twice. Also known as the perceptual soul, goes up to the eternal mind itself, which is actually the higher root of his soul. There they attach to each other and become one through meditating, thus creating an energy bond which comes from the mind to the perceiver. It follows that he will perceive the light and the energy itself. It then descends from the mind to the thinking soul. This energy and tangible light is the concept called thought, machshava. Understand this well, because this is not an empty concept. If misunderstood, then you have nullified all the concepts pertaining to meditation through prayer and all the thoughts of man, whether good or bad. Now, maybe we'll look at it one more time. So he says the soul is compared to a very long branch. So think of a branch. A branch is a long branch, comes from a tree that sprouts forth from its roots, which is attached to the tree and extends into the body of man. So there is a tree, and I guess the tree has roots. This is a branch that extends into us. Now, there is some aspect of the original root that is within us. While a person desires to connect to his source, so that means the root or what is beyond the root, the light of his mind, which is referred to as the thing being perceived by the perceiver. So let's try to understand, what does he mean? That which is perceived, person could see in his mind, also known as the perceptual soul. This perceptual soul goes up to the eternal mind itself, which is actually the higher root of his soul. So when we think of a root, or we think of a trunk or a branch, then we're metaphorizing, I'm not the right word here, the concept of some physical concept of something which is only mind. That ultimately the mind itself is actually the higher root of his soul. There is an ultimate mind, he's saying. There they attach to each other and become one through meditating. That is what? It is the root, and that which is beyond the root, which is the mind, attaches to the mind that is down below. That's us. Thus creating an energy bond which comes from the mind to the perceiver, so that you receive this. It follows that he will perceive the light and the energy itself. It then says, in other words, you're actually perceiving that it is possible in meditation to come to a sense where you can actually perceive, in some sense, the energy that's coming from the root or the mind, the ultimate mind. It then descends from the mind to the thinking soul. This energy and tangible light is the concept called thought, machshava. Understand this well, because this is not an empty concept. If understood, then you have nullified all the concepts pertaining to meditation. He said, if misunderstood, then you have nullified all the concepts pertaining to meditation through prayer and all the thoughts of man, whether good or bad. Now let's see what we could do here in the time remaining as we try to understand the concept of a mind, an ultimate mind, and that we are connected actually physically, or it's not really physically, but there is a direct connection. As the human mind emerges within this human spirit, we become unfettered by the rigid, constricted limitations of the physical universe and the forces of din permeating it. So in other words, the world that we live in is extremely contracted, and we are bounded every place, and many of the boundaries are painful. As the mind expands into the realm of spirit, though, our consciousness attains access to numerous dimensional planes above our own. Thus, when we perform a meditative visualization technique, let's say for example, it has repercussions far beyond the confines of our limited physical space. Therefore, as it is below, so it is above. What we think about or meditate upon here below manifests above. Now, earlier he said that it connects up above. And this is one of the ideas I think he was saying, that God is very much alive. So that if we come to him, what he is inside of all of us. So he's very much alive. So as we approach him, so he says, therefore, as it is below, so it is above. He's also coming towards us. What we think about or meditate upon here below manifests above. Our sages teach us that everything is to be found in the Torah. Our sages also teach us that the entire Torah is the name of Hashem. The holy Mekubalim have already understood the meaning of this. So he says, using techniques passed down to them from the biblical prophets, received by them from Moshe Rabbeinu himself, our holy Mekubalim have learnt how to draw from our holy Torah divine powers when intertwining and combining its letters. Now hear this again. He says what they had learned was to draw from our holy Torah divine powers. Powers of what? Powers of good, when intertwining and combining its letters. These letter combinations are what we refer to as the Shemot HaKadoshim, holy names of God. So we have 22 letters. Certain ones have this special, and combinations can be used. Understand well the 22 letters of the Hebrew language and their correlations to time, space, soul, and consciousness. Our great sages have taught us in their infinite wisdom that the entire Torah is one long name of Hashem, that every verse also contains a smaller version of that powerful name. Our sages have also taught us that Hashem looked into the Torah, pronounced some of its letters, and created the world. As you recite the Torah and thereby the holy names of the Creator, you actively become a partner in creation. Now, I think this particular paragraph, and all of them, everything that he's saying here, is really phenomenal. But I want to read this part again and see if we can understand it better. So, the Kabbalists hold that the letters themselves are the building blocks of reality. That is, the Hebrew letters. Underswelled in the 22 letters of the Hebrew language and their correlations, and what is the correlation to letters that have to do with time? What they have to do with space or soul and consciousness. So all of these, I don't have the answer to that. But I'm looking. Our great sages have taught us in their infinite wisdom that the entire Torah is one long name of Hashem. In other words, I think it maybe means that if you want to address Hashem, and you want to cling to Hashem, then you have to realize that the letters in the Torah and all of the Torah, the entire Torah, is part of His name. So it's like you're calling Him. And that every verse also contains a smaller version of that powerful name. So in other words, there is a name inside of a name, inside of a name. Our sages have also taught us that Hashem looked into the Torah, pronounced some of its letters, and created the world. As you recite the Torah, so if you are meritorious enough to be able to learn the Torah, and even if you don't understand what you're saying, but if you're reciting the words, and thereby the holy names of the Creator, you actively become a partner in creation. Of course, disclaiming that statement about not understanding what you're saying, there are all different kinds of levels of relation. You could make a wonderful tune out of Torah words without knowing anything about it. But the more you do it, you'll find out. This is Baruch Fleischman here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, loving this Sefer of Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran.